Today we're speaking about oil. Okay, now the word oil, at least for our purposes, means, this is, I forgot which dictionary is the translation, it means something that's a liquid, or it could be made into a liquid if you make it a little warmer, heat it up a little bit, it can make it liquid. It doesn't mix with water, and it has a greasy feel for it. Okay? Whatever that means. Okay. Now, there's something else that's called fat. Okay? And fat and oil, I'm going to talk more about in a second, but fat and oil is the same thing. Chemically, structurally, it's the same thing. The difference just is that what we call oil is the things that are liquid at room temperature, and fat is things that are solid at room temperature. So we call it animal fat and vegetable oil.
Temperature.
Okay, it depends how old you are, what you think is room temperature. You know what I mean?
No, I always wondered about it's kind of in the Roman Machmish, the Chatchila Shabbos, you shouldn't put something before Shabbos, it should be Chazal.
Right.
Start from what point? Right? It's all hot.
Right.
I want to put my things over there,
Yeah.
So at what point, so what's room temperature? So what should it be before?
I have no idea. Okay.
I've been pondering for a while.
Okay, you can think about that. Fine. Now, so
Approximately 70 degrees.
okay, fine. So what kind of oils are there? So there's a bunch of different kinds. There's oils that come from like seeds of vegetables, like canola oil. There's some that from fruit, like olive oil. They come from nuts, like walnut oil. They come from, I mentioned already, animal fat, and then it's like from fish, like cod liver oil. Okay, and at the end, I'm going to talk for a minute just about essential oils and citrus oils. It's a different sug. It's a different kind of a thing. Okay, but all the oils I mentioned until now, like canola oil and corn oil and olive oil, those have a lot of similarities to each other. Okay, now we've spoken about before that what's the structure, what are oils and fats, what's their structure? The structure is one glycerin, and that's attached to 3 fatty acids. Okay, and the difference between one oil and the next, the difference in the properties between one and the next is which fatty acids on it. Glycerin is the same. And there's different fatty acids. So if you have this mix of fatty acids, that has a certain boiling point, but it's a solid room temperature, and all kinds of things about it have to do with the fatty acids. What does it smell like? How does it cook? All kinds of things like that. And that the different properties between one and the next just is that difference. But that's the same structure that they all have is this glycerin with 3 fatty acids. Okay, now, because they're so similar, because they all really are the same thing, it's really glycerin with fatty acids, so that means people who are not so scrupulous can substitute one for the other because they have a lot of similarities to each other. One oil and the next have similarities. So you just have to find ones that are close enough that you could switch one for the other one. Okay? So, like, for example, there are people who switch palm olein oil and they dilute it into sesame oil. Sesame oil is very expensive. Palm olein oil is not expensive, and they put one into the other. You're getting sesame oil. You think you're getting sesame oil. But they're diluting because they have similar properties. In other words, they mix their fatty acids are similar, and therefore they can put a little of this into the other one to get away with it. Or mustard oil, which is very expensive. Actually, it's hard to get mustard oil. So people instead we'll use rice bran oil. Now, rice bran oil has similar properties, but it doesn't taste like mustard. So then they put in this artificial thing called, I hope I pronounce this right, L-isothiocyanate. Okay, which is the flavor part of mustard, like if you buy Kashrus Pesach mustard, that's what you're getting. It's an artificial thing. So they put that in together with rice bran oil, and then it mimics mustard, which is very expensive. So all these things that I'm telling you, the examples I gave you, and almost everything you can do, inherently the thing is going to be kosher. Whether I'm getting the truth or I'm actually getting palm olein oil or sesame oil, they're both kosher. Doesn't make a difference. They're both kosher. You're not going to put an animal fat instead of it. That's not going to happen. So from the inherently, they would be kosher. Except I'm going to give you two exceptions to that rule before we talk about the not inherent issues. Okay. The first is fish oil. Okay, which is there are people who want to eat fish oil because they think that it gives them some health benefit. Okay, and often they come from kosher fish like mackerel and tuna and herring. Those are common sources for these things. Cod, I told you, mentioned before also. Okay, but there are people who make it from shark and swordfish. Okay, so though they're similar enough, one fish oil for the other one that you could switch one for the other one or dilute one with the other one, and that's why it needs Hashgachah. Okay, now we've talked beforehand also that. There's a big machlokes whether you could be samech on umol nafshe for fish. Right? Like the famous issue has to do with tuna fish, but it has to do with a lot of other fish-related things also. Could you be samech on umol nafshe? If I know for sure he's going to put that in because of his business reasons, I could be samech on that. Or do you say, no, you have to have there's a takonos chacham that a yid has to check every fish and make sure that it's a kosher fish. Okay, it's a shayla. Midoraisa, of course, it would be mutter be some mulam nafshi. Shayla is there a chiyuv rabban, a special takonos rabban that you have to check the fish. Okay, that's it. We know that's having to do with fish. Okay, so Rebelsky said that that's only true when there's a chashash that the person biting into his tuna sandwich might actually bite into a piece of tray fish. Instead of putting in tuna, they would have put in a different fish. When I bite into it, I'm going to bite into a piece of fish. He said, but that whole takana only applies when there's actual fish, or a fish roll, or something like that. But if it's liquefied and it's mixed together like fish oil or like gelatin, he says, then there's no takana. Because there's no chance I'm going to bite into the tray fish. It's all mixed together. What?
Where'd that come from?
I don't remember where he got it from. He said it, and he said Rabbi Yashin told him that it was correct. That it was true also. Okay, that whole takana doesn't apply. The takana is when you might actually bite into a fish. It might be maybe it's what Rashi says in the Gemara. I don't remember. That the chashash is you might bite into it.
Something about from the dog is not, even though it's a tray fish, it's not.
It's true. You think, and therefore that's the reason why the takana doesn't apply. I don't think so. I remember it was the other way, which was it's the only chashash is when you actually the chashash is the person might actually literally bite into a piece of isser. But if you're not going to bite into isser, it's just going to be just a tarubas, or it's going to be a gelatin that's straight. That was okay, and therefore he held you could be samach and nafshe for those things. And I was like, but even though he held, he did not like OU tuna. He didn't believe you could be samach and nafshe for actual fish, but for fish oil he held. That doesn't mean there's any hashgachah, because me consumer, I'm never going to be able to figure out if it's nafshe on this thing. But Hashgachah is supposed to make that judgment. These people, for their business purposes, dafka using this kind of a fish. Okay, that's one. So that's one place where inherently the oil could be traced. There's something could be wrong with the oil. Where the inherent issue is that the oil I'm getting could be a problem. And the second one is for Pesach. And that is, lots and lots of the edible oils are kosher Pesach. I made a list of a few: almond and coconut and grapeseed and olive, palm and safflower. Okay, all those are kosher Pesach. But there are also a whole bunch that we consider to be Kitnios. I got a list of those also: canola, corn, hemp, sesame, soy, and sunflower oil. Okay, and then there's a machlokas. In the United States, we consider cottonseed and linseed oil to be okay. But never so they don't. They think they're Kitnios. Okay, but anyhow, so there's a long list of oils. A lot of these oils, there are probably more that I didn't think of. Lots of oils that are fine for Pesach, and lots of them that are Kitnios. Okay, so again, when you're dealing with vegetable cooking oils, there's again a chance of substituting one for the other. Again, year round, it's not such an issue because so let they substitute one for the other. Kashrus wise, I'm not talking about whether you're getting what you wanted. Kashrus wise, it's all the same. Kashrus is kosher. But for Pesach, you could be getting a Kitnios oil. Now we know that Kitnios is but the baroiv. So the chances of someone putting in more than 50% of Kitnios oil is very far-fetched. I mean, how much could you dilute it before it starts becoming like the other thing? Before you're not getting the properties you're looking for.
So who does the substitution? I mean, what are you talking about? I come to a company, they're going to do it over there. I mean, obviously the whole company has got an oil coming in as an oil.
Mm-hmm. So whoever's making it, whether it's the oil company, the bottling guy doing it, or the guy producing it out in... I'm not the kelim. I'm talking right now. I'm just about the issue, the inherent oil, the inherent oil itself. So again, regular. If someone puts in rice bran oil instead of mustard oil, they're both kosher. So from the inherently, whether I'm getting the truth or I'm not, I don't care about that. From the kashrus wise, I don't care about that. But for Pesach, I could actually be getting a Kitnios oil. Okay, but again, the chances that it's more than 50% is very unlikely. That doesn't mean we should give hashgacha for it. I'm not giving hashgacha when it's 30% Kitnios oil. So if we're giving hashgacha, we have to make sure it's real. But in the truth of the possibility of a person getting actual Kitnios, it's hard to believe that the guy buys the oil, that the inherent oil, to think that they put in so much sunflower oil that it was more than 50%. That's not so mistake. Okay, so everything, again, as I said, everything until now was about the inherent oil itself. Okay, but now the processing is where the more shilos are. The inherent issues are not so serious. And that was like this. When you take the oil out of a plant or whatever you're taking it out of, there's two basic ways to do it. Either you squeeze, you press it, okay? There's an expeller and cold pressing, but you press it to squeeze it out, or you use a solvent. And usually the solvent is hexane. Not a kashrus issue. Okay? You get the oil out with a solvent or by squeezing. Okay, so when you're at that stage, which is called the crude stage, just as it came out of the plant, at that point there isn't kelim issues. But when you make oil for people to use, consumers to cook with, b'derech chal, you have to deodorize them. Okay, that is to say, they have odors to them that people don't like. That's not considered good. So you deodorize it. How do you deodorize them? So to deodorize, to get rid of the odor, you distill it, which in short means is you boil it to a certain temperature where the odor boils off and the oil does not boil off. Okay, that's a short version of what you do when you deodorize. Okay, you're boiling off the odor and you're leaving behind the oil.
The odor is natural to the oil, or it's
It's part. No, it's part of. Okay, natural and impurities is the same thing. It's, the way it comes out of the corn, it comes with this odor
It's
to
a
it.
natural part of the corn.
Right. Okay. Okay. Whatever. Yeah. No, it's not that another plant fell into the pot.
Okay.
Okay. It's just so people don't like that odor, and therefore you deodor. But deodorizing means is you're boiling it to a certain temperature, and those kalim, and the whole idea of distillation, which is so fine tuned that it gets at very specific things, this and that. And oil that doesn't spoil so easily means you can use the same deodorizer for animal fat and for vegetable oil. Now, not every vegetable oil, not every animal fat are working the same deodorizer, but there's a lot of mixing that they could use them. And the kalim could never be cleaned, literally could never be cleaned. You know the story when they had to Kashrus one a deodorizer. They were working with jackhammers to get all the old animal fat off the machine, because that's how much was caked onto the machine. It's been sitting there for 99 years. It's been building up. So mamela, you need hashgachah on it, not because of the etzem oil. You're concerned that the corn oil you're getting is not corn oil. Yeah, you're getting corn oil. But if it's deodorized, which is typical, what you would get when you're buying for retail or personal, or for a company to use it, someone's going to use it, it's going to be deodorized, and that's what we have to think about the kalim that it's used on. Okay, now you may remember, I'm not going to tell you about it today, that when we learned in what's called that alcoholic beverages, there's a shaila whether there's taka an issue. Let's say it was made in treif kale. There's a tzad that to think about whether that should be mutter or not. That's not considered. It's not correct, but it's such a tzad. Anyhow, okay. Now, one exception to this whole thing is that there's one oil where they actually like the odor, okay, and that's extra virgin olive oil, okay. The extra virgin, regular olive oil that you buy in the store is deodorized because olive oil has a certain odor to it that's not considered so desirable.
Even not parmesan?
What do you say?
Regular olive, even not parmesan oil?
Is what? Is deodorized? Yeah, it is. Because extra virgin olive oil, which is not deodorized, has a certain smell to it. And they tell you don't use it for certain things because it has a certain odor that people don't like. And fakir, the people who buy it is because they don't like it, because they want that odor that should have to it.
We'll say regular olive doesn't need, only extra virgin doesn't.
Right, only extra virgin doesn't. Okay, and that's because it's what for some people is a negative thing, other people it's a positive thing. And so it's done without any heat and it's without any deodorizing. And that's the one thing that we say that okay, you're safe with that. Okay, but and I know that there's reports about how it's always how people are adulterated and this and that, and it's all fake and this and that. But when you dig into those reports, you find out that almost every one of the things that they found are like, for example, it was rated as a certain color. It has to be a certain color to qualify as extra virgin olive oil, and it wasn't the right color. It was past the expiration date. It was all kinds of things that are quality issues that had nothing to do with the kashrus of the etzem, the kashrus of the thing. Okay, not that you weren't actually getting extra virgin. Okay, so that's one thing. One issue of kalim is the deodorizing. Okay, another is that all that oil, the people who make that oil, they don't make it in little bottles. Okay, they make huge amounts of it. Somebody at a farm in Thailand or in Nebraska is making a huge amount of oil, and that oil gets moved around from place to place till it eventually comes into a little bottle that comes into your house. Okay, so there's three ways that it moves around. Three ways it moves in bulk. The first is with a ship. Ships go across the ocean or up the Mississippi, okay? Those are like a barge, not as big as a boat across the ocean, but big. And in those, in all three, I'm going to tell you now, in a boat, it's the first one, the liquid is not in the container. It's in, the boat has got a big hold, just basically a big empty stainless steel room that the oil fills into. And there's three shilas to those ships. The first was the thing that was here before here in treif. Right now it's kosher oil, but what was the thing that was here yesterday, treif? What about the second shilah? What about the thing that's in the next hold, the adjacent hold? Okay, they share a wall. Okay, so it could be hot product on both sides. And the third is whether there's steam that keeps things hot on the boat, certain things have to be above, have to be warm, whether that steam system makes it chafe or not. Okay, so it became accepted that if the last 3 loads in the ship were kosher, in this hold were kosher, in hold number 26, the last 3 loads were kosher, or things that were like gasoline, or things that don't have to be that are not chafe, then you're good. Maybe that helps for the first item, maybe the previous hold was chafe. Let's say the other 2, it's not so clear how. We talked about this now once also. No one's exactly so sure how it works. But that's considered acceptable in Hashgachah reasons if the last 3 holds were kosher. Okay, that's for a boat. For rail cars,
That changed, and that's still the case.
that's what everybody does. Yeah. Okay. For rail cars and tankers, that's the other 2 ways to
There's
travel.
a tumult about it. I mean,
There's a tumult every bunch of years about it. Yeah. Well, yes, correct.
You're talking about trucks, huh?
No, I was originally talking about ships. Now I'm getting to trucks now. So rail cars and trucks are different. They're much smaller than boats. A rail car could like 30,000 gallons, and a truck could like 6,000 gallons. Okay, and rail cars have a certain advantage, and their advantage is that almost always the rail car is ein ben yomer between one product and the next. Okay, and there's 3 reasons for that. One is because a rail car, it tends to be a one-way trip. Okay, the manufacturer, the guy who makes huge amounts of oil, let's say, is sending it to a factory that's going to bottle it. That guy has nothing to send back. He has nothing to send back. In a truck, there's things going in 2 directions. In rail cars, things go in 1 direction. Another reason is because rail cars are very not flexible. They can only go where the tracks are. So they can't go over there to pick something up. They can only go from here to here. They're sort of stuck on a route. And the third is because rail cars are really easy. You could, if these cars are empty, you just stick them onto the back of another thing. The same crew that takes 10 cars can take 20 cars and 50 cars and 500 cars. So they're easy to take back as opposed to a truck. Every truck's got to have a driver. Okay, so it's not kedai to send the truck back with nothing in it. But to send the rail car with nothing in it, big deal. They'll just stick it onto the back of the other ones, and it eventually makes its way back. Okay, so rail cars have this advantage that they're always ein ben yomer. The trucks have the advantage that they're made of very thin metal. The walls are very thin metal, and come out always, the blias that are in there are bought the bashishim into the product that's in the thing. So that's good. So they each have milas to them. Lamaisa in the United States at this point, almost all hashgachas will say that the rail cars and the trucks have to be kosher and washed in kosher places also. It's not like that all over the world, but by and large in America that's what happens. Okay, that's good news. Okay. One more thing, one more kalim issue that could be for oils, and that is when you convert the oil. Okay, so I told you that the oil is made from.
When it says bottle reshishim, the walls are hot in the truck.
If the product is hot, then the walls are hot also.
Before it's not in the hot, you put it hot.
Well, 2 things. Let's say you're putting in something that's a liquid that's hot. Let's say a hydrogenated vegetable oil or animal fat. It goes in hot. Plus, so of course that heats up the walls. Plus, the truck has its own heating on the bottom.
So when you
to keep
start
hot.
first up putting the oil, I would question and it's not full yet.
Mhm.
The blias, right? You can make a kulai. The blias are going to go into the liquid.
But you're filling it up. It's all in one flow. It's all coming together. So the blia that's in there is not until you fill it up, until you stop. Until you got to fill it up. As you pour it in. I don't think you do. Okay, but that's for a different day. We'll talk about it. I don't think you do. Okay. So back to where I was. When oil is made of glycerin and fatty acids. Okay. And the fatty acid is the more chashuv part. I'm thinking if you're not cooking with it, the fatty acid is the more chashuv part than the glycerin. So how do you get the fatty acids away from the glycerin? So what you do is you put into this machine.
Why should you do that for?
Because companies want the fatty acids. This oil is not becoming someone's going to cook with it. They want fatty acids out of this oil. That's what they're looking for. They're trying to get the fatty acids out of it.
What's the property if once you remove the glycerin? What kind of properties does this thing have?
What is
those properties of oil or?
Well, no. It's 2 different things now. The glycerin is glycerin.
I said, what's the property of the fatty acid? What is it used for? What does it do?
Oh, it's the biggest use it has is for flavors. Okay, it's used to make flavors are made from those fatty acids. They have flavor to them. They have odor or flavor to them. But they're also used to make things out of them. Like if you get the stearic acid out of it, then you can make magnesium stearate out of it.
It's not oil anymore. It's not used for oil uses anymore.
No, it's not oil. No, it's oil. It's finished. It's not oil anymore.
So what's the problem with the oil? What was the problem in the first place?
I didn't get to the problem yet. I'm just telling you first what you do. If you want to split it off, you have oil. You have coconut oil, okay? And you want to take the fatty acids off the coconut oil, okay? So how are you going to get the fatty acids off, separated from the glycerin? So there's this machine that's called, it has a really fancy name, if I remember, it's called a splitter, okay? It's a really descriptive name. It's called the splitter, okay? No, it's not. That's not what it is. What it is the one that I saw, the splitter was 100 feet tall and 20 feet across, okay? And it's a huge, monstrous cylinder, okay? Monster, like a huge thing. And into it, you put in the liquid pours through it, the oil pours through it. It's heated up to, if I remember, 700 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Huge, and under pressure, okay? Between the pressure and the heat, it splits apart the glycerin from the fatty acids, okay? It makes the distillation. Well, then that later gets distilled, but at this point, no, it just gets separated, okay? But it's under huge amounts of heat and pressure. You're not, first you have to split them. To distill would be to say, once we have the fatty acids as the soup, okay, these are what they call mixed fatty acids, now we want to get, I only want the stearic acid, I don't want the oleic acid, or I want to separate one from each other. That ain't distillation.
It's separation.
What?
To break the molecules.
Right, so first I have to break the molecules, get the glycerin this way and the fatty acids this way, and then the fatty acids, there's mixed fatty acids, so I want the oleic and the stearic to not be together, so that I distill to separate them from each other. Okay, now that splitter could be used for anything. Well, not anything, but you can put animal fat into there also. Okay, again, the ones that I was looking at, they use the splitter for animal fat and for coconut oil. The same one, because they're close enough in property, and today was animal fat and tomorrow was coconut oil. Okay, so you put them through, and you could split both of them to get these fatty acids. The glycerin goes that way, and the fatty acids go that way. Okay.
It's also not clean.
No, not at all. And the reason why it's not clean is, think what's coming out of this machine. On the one side is coming out glycerin. Glycerin is glycerin. Who cares where it came from? Glycerin is glycerin. The other side is coming out fatty acids. The fatty acids are going to go to a distillation column that's going to separate one fatty acid from the other one. So what do I care, what do they care, whether the stearic acid came from the coconut side or from the animal side? In the end of the day, stearic acid is stearic acid. So they don't care where it came from. So the distillation column is going to separate things into pieces, and I'll get what I want to, so it doesn't need to be clean. No, it does not need to be clean. When we say that fatty acids, that such thing as laundry grade, like not for kosher for animal, not for food use, it's kosher for not food use. So the tshuvas that were originally written to explain why that's mutter, they said what you have to do is you have to flush through. So if you flush through 100,000 pounds, I think it was 100,000 pounds of product and you don't consider that to be kosher, afterwards you can consider what comes out of it to be laundry grade kosher, not for food use. So 100,000 pounds, you think, my gosh, 100,000 pounds, could you imagine? There's nothing left in this thing. It's kosher, hagol b'sham mashkim, and it's cleaned out 100,000 pounds worth of stuff. Right, that was true until I went and looked at the machine. And the reason why where'd they cut this crazy number from? Because that's how much a machine holds at a time. Okay, at a time. So when you say flush it through, it means basically you push a little stuff in and push a little stuff out. It's not a gullah. It's not even cleaning it over the end. It is what it is. Okay, whatever. So yeah, it sounds like 100,000 pounds. You hear like that, you think the pipe is like this big. So you put 100,000 pounds through it, you can imagine it. But yeah, well, okay. So that's one reason. That's when we change the oil into these things, it needs hashgachah. Those things need hashgachah. Now we're going to move away from vegetable oil. Okay. There's another thing to do with oil, and that is you could hydrogenate it.
So he says they're not typically use kosher, non-kosher. These plants are
No.
kosher, these plants are not kosher.
Right. No. There are ones that do both, but then they don't have hashgachah on them. They wouldn't have hashgachah on them. But if that's hashgachah, yeah, you're not switching back and forth. No, people are not switching the splitters back and forth between one and the other. No. But then there's another thing called hydrogenation, okay, and that is, we're back to an oil. Now you take an oil, you take corn oil, let's say, and you hydrogenate it. What that means is not important, which is you do a process to it that makes it to become solid at room temperature. Okay, basically, you're playing around with it so that instead of corn oil, which is a liquid at room temperature, it becomes a solid. Okay, and we call that solid margarine. Okay, you change its properties, so now it becomes a solid at room temperature. So you have margarine or shortening. Okay, that's same idea. And so those need hashgachah because the hydrogenation units can be used also they could be used for kosher treif, not as much of a chashash, but hydrogenation also includes milchig ingredients, and it also can include polysorbates. And on top of all of that is that in these polysorbates, what are polysorbates? It's an emulsifier. A polysorbate is made from one side for the fatty acid and one side with the sorbic acid. And it's an emulsifier. So
Emulsifiers are usually not bought to Mashishim.
they are balta b'shishim, but they're davar hamayimid.
I said, but the bleed is not
Agave bleus. No, so I wasn't talking about bleus. I was talking about just the thing itself, the hydrogenate oil, the thing itself. But you're right, for the bleus, we wouldn't be back on that. That's correct. But then there's another thing, which is in these kind of companies, maybe every company has rework. So even if mine is clean, you have to make sure we're not getting rework from the other guy. Okay. Now this is a shiloh that comes up that has nothing to do, not really to do with us, which is it happens. It's a very common shiloh. Is that a lot of I said very quickly that a lot of these margarine type things have milchig ingredients in them. Okay, and it happens all the time that people take the milchig margarine and they use it for some inflations. Okay, by mistake. They're not doing it on purpose. They thought the margarine was parv, and then my margarine is parv. And then after they pick up the packet and they see that there's a D on it, and they find that it's milchig. So it's the it very much depends on whether it's bottle in this chanans. I only remember one of the people who used to take care of it, Schomfeld. When you'd call him up and you'd say to him, "Hi, I made," and you start to tell him, it was like Yankee. He said, "I started to use this and this thing." He would know it like in his sleep. He could tell you which ones were bottled and which ones were not because it was such a common shiloh. It was like mine was like, it was the blue package. He was ready, fine, you could eat your food. Like, he took care of this company, like these companies that made this stuff. And like he was like in his sleep, he could tell you which one was which. Like, okay. Now, last for this part, I'm almost done.
Why would they put in dairy but be bottled? What's the?
I don't remember. I don't remember why would people, I have no idea.
I don't have it, but it used to be much more margin with tea.
I don't know. Okay.
First time with mission was
Okay. When all these things I'm telling you about these people who do conversions, who do splitting, and even who work with kosher and treif, when you deal with a plant like that, again, I did this once. I spent a few days doing this, which is knowing which pipe connects to which machine was a, I don't want to say it's a horror. It was just a huge amount of work. Okay, to trace lines and follow piping all around the factory was a very painstaking and tedious job, and it's no fun. And in the plant where I was busy doing this plant loved to connect things. So if any guy had an idea, maybe we want to move things from tank number 4 to tank number 16, they'd put a new connection between them. Okay, so they would do 1,000 pipes in this place. Literally, and every place, any guy could put a little connection between, now let's move from here to here. Okay, so, and that had to be redone every once in a while because they were so mashuga. Okay, the people like to do that. They were just into this, like, connecting pipes and this and that. Anyhow, it's a job in figuring out a plant like this, if it's mixed, to figure out what goes to what. Okay, 2 more small things. And one is that aside from, we've been talking all now about like cooking oils, there's also oils used for lubricants. So if it's just on the machine and doesn't touch the food, so potato, who cares? That doesn't bother anybody. But when it touches the food, like if you use PAM or you use like this parchment papers that have oils on them, then those need Hashgachah. The ones that have just like silicone, we think don't need Hashgachah. Okay, and I told you I would tell you at the end is that we've been talking all this has been like cooking oils. 2 other kinds of oils are essential oils and citrus oils. Essential oils like bergamot oil and eucalyptus oil. They come from flowers, from botanicals, and the oil itself tends to be okay. There's exceptions.
Why describe them as essential oils? Why are they called essential oils?
Because I think the name comes from because it's like the ikar, like the main tom of this thing. Like if you want the flavor of the spearmint, you eat mint. The ikar part of it is this essential oil. That's the whole flavor.
In Citrico, they take the oil from the orange peel. What's that? It's also called essential.
It's also an essential oil. Yeah, it's the same. Well, it's because it's the same type of a thing. It has the ikar flavor. That's why when you buy oranges, it's not from concentrate. How do they make oranges not from concentrate? Well, they make from oranges. But how do they have oranges not from concentrate all year round? Oranges don't grow all year round. So LMI is they store the oranges. Okay, they keep them in special temperatures, controls that they should last for a long time.
So oranges or orange juice?
Oranges. They do juice also, but a lot of it they still oranges. And what happens is with time they don't taste so good. I mean, they manage to magically keep them from spoiling, but they don't taste so good. So to make them taste better, they add orange oil afterwards from peels. So when it tastes really geschmack, it's because you had a lot of peel in it. That's what makes it taste good. Anyhow, so there's an exception that I could think of was grapeseed oil, okay, which has concerns of what's called stam yain. What I'm saying is, as a rule, essential oils tend to be okay. Other things that are a little like fancier than like oleoresins and absolutes, they need Hashgachah, but essential oils tend to not need Hashgachah. Citrus oils, well, that's what I'm saying. Those are citrus oils. I mix up my words. When you take from orange peels, it's not an essential oil. They call that a citrus oil. Okay, like orange oil or a lemon oil, those are from the peels. Those are not called essential oils. They're called citrus oils. Those also tend to not have kashrus issues, except that a lot of those come from Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is a big producer of those things. So it's just something to be aware of, or just to alert for, which is Batson will be okay. Just you have to deal with Trumas and Mises and Arla and things like that. Otherwise,
Trumas and Mises from the oil of the peel?
I don't remember whether you do or don't. I know it's a to-do. I don't remember which way it is. Because it's edible. I don't remember. I mean, in these cases, they're edible, so maybe that makes it different, but I don't remember what it is. I have to look. Should I check?
What do you mean it's edible? What's edible?
It's edible because you use the oil for food, and it's edible because people cook with peels. They actually cook with them. With orange peels? It's the thing people make orange.
Well, it just is they're not edible. Okay, so they choose.
It's not a derek to eat it. Trumas and Mises,
People they make orange. They there's a word for it. I forgot what it's called. When you grind them up and use them.
Don't cover orange.
I forgot what it's called.
orange peels are